This episode of The Feral Mammy is brought to you by Bumps and Banya, supporting you through pregnancy, birth and beyond with antenatal education, hypnobirthing, birth doula care, breastfeeding support and baby sensory classes across the northeast of Ireland, covering Louth, Monaghan, Cavan and Meath. Real preparation, real support, no fluff, just care that actually holds you. Hello and welcome to the Feral Mammy podcast. I'm your host, Aoife Lennon, IBCLC, birth doula and hypnobirthing educator. And today's episode is one I think so many women are going to recognize themselves in. We are talking about the hormonal seasons of a woman's life, from those early years of puberty through motherhood and on into the very often misunderstood territory of perimenopause. Because for so many women, this stage doesn't just change our bodies, it changes how we see ourselves, our relationships, and the expectations that we have been quietly carrying about for years. So my guest today is Bindloss, and Bean is a BANT and CNHC registered nutritional therapist and integrative hypnotherapist who works with women and girls from puberty right through to postmenopause with a particular focus on perimenopause. And her work goes far beyond food or supplements. She looks at the bigger picture of women's health, including lifestyle, emotional patterns, life history, and the deeper root causes behind the symptoms. Thank you so much for joining me, Bean. How are you today?
Oh, thank you, Aoife. It's really good to be here, and it's been a great day. Thank you.
So we're going to have a chat today about why so many women, I suppose, arrive at perimenopause, and I think unexpectedly arrive at perimenopause. Like, I'm 42 and I am in full perimenopausal swing, and I really didn't expect to be at this age. And like so many other women, feeling exhausted, stretched thin, wondering if something is all of a sudden wrong with you. If you're like me, you've lost focus with everything. And again, I know that perimenopause can really kind of heighten those symptoms. And so many women, like for years, have been thought of as being like irrational or difficult or even witches.
Yep.
And the truth can so often be the opposite. Like, it's in the same way that we talk about motherhood, guilt, communication, teenagers. It's just a life stage, it's a life change. And I know for a lot of my listeners that the whole area of intimacy and sex as hormones shift is huge. So again, thank you so much, Bean, because this episode is really going to be about helping women to reconnect with the wisdom of their own bodies, because our bodies are absolutely wonderful, and perhaps reclaim a little of the magic that we're being constantly told to hide. So grab a cup, settle in, and enjoy this episode of the Feral Mommy podcast with Bean. Something I know that bothers you is that perimenopausal women are often mislabeled, and I'm going to say mislabeled because it's wrong, as being irrational or difficult, when something far, far deeper is happening physiologically and emotionally. So what's really going on there?
Yes. Well, I think, as you say, physiologically, emotionally, things are happening on different levels. So on a physiological level, hormones are dropping. What tends to drop first? Every woman's experience of perimenopause is going to be completely unique, but there are trends, and the trend is that progesterone drops first. Progesterone is a really amazing hormone to support pregnancy. It's really important for supporting pregnancy, but it's really good at buffering stress. It helps you feel relaxed, it helps you feel soothed, it helps you sleep, and you start losing that. So you lose that, and we're all carrying so much. We're all managing everyone else's emotions. If we're in a family, we are managing our husband's emotions, more than likely, our children. We're doing the emotional legwork, and we just don't have that capacity because our nervous system becomes, the capacity that the nervous system can carry, because progesterone is dropping, is reducing. And, have trauma. if you have emotional trauma, big T, little t trauma in your life, if you have any neurodiversity, if you're a highly sensitive person, that's going to be even more heightened. So your capacity is less. It's a little bit like, I feel that perimenopause is like the luteal phase of your period of your cycle, when you're coming down into the second half of your cycle and you're approaching your period. And that's another phase of our hormonal cycles where we're accused of being irrational and emotional, but actually our hormones are dropping, like in perimenopause, and we losing that veil that makes us nice and appeasing and accommodating and likable, and that ever sort of loving, divine woman that we're meant to be all the time. We almost see things more clearly. It's like we can see the reality of the situation more clearly. The fog has lifted, and that, you know, that might make us really cross and really annoyed. And so that's almost a more truthful time of life than it has been previously. We haven't been taught how to handle these emotions. We haven't been encouraged to express in our life as women, you know, anger, frustration, rage, even. We don't know how. We haven't had the practice, we haven't had the modeling in how to handle them and hold them and channel them effectively.
If anything, we've been taught to just
Yep.
squash them right
Squash it
down,
down. Yep.
and that
Yep.
they're not ladylike. They're not.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. So it comes out. And in some women it comes out really, you know, some women really struggle and they're really challenged. They're really scared. They can be really scary to feel like that. So that's going on. There's so much tied into it.
But it really is just, it's like, it's just a normal part of that transitioning. When I think back to my mom when she was going through perimenopause and certainly right through into menopause, I would have described her behavior as psychopathic, but it wasn't really, you know, like, and I know that she really, really struggled with all of that emotional burden of having to carry everyone else
Mm.
and herself things. You just,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
it's it's like the shutters have just come up. And I see that in myself now, really see it in myself. Like I was actually only saying it there on last week's podcast that I call turning 40 the emancipation of fucks, because it literally, you know, I just don't have any left to give.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
refer, you know, every single one of my friends gets a card saying, congratulations on your emancipation of fucks, because that's what it is,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And I know maybe for other people looking in that that can look like, oh my God, like she's bonkers. Like, and I suppose that's where the feral mammy has come from as well.
Mm.
But it is, it's
Yeah.
normal. So
It's
normal.
It's it's normal. I mean, the situation that we're in, where we've been suppressed and we've been silenced and we've been shaped by society to be this like ever sweet, loving, acquiescent, appeasing human. That's not normal. You know, it is normal for us to be able to express, you know, what you might call the darker feminine, which is actually the more masculine side, which is happy and comfortable expressing anger and frustration and owns her own power, and who is in touch with her sensuality, and, you know, can see, you know, is, you know, you might say also ambitious, or what doesn't settle for what she shouldn't be settling for. But and it's almost like it's a redressing of that balance, I think, during perimenopause.
I think as well, for women who don't find an outlet for that stress, that overwhelm, even that, you know, some women even feel like guilty for trying to invest any time or any money in that kind of side of their health, their, what do we call this, like endocrine health, mental health.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
mixture
all of
of
it.
all, like it's emotional, mental, sexual health, it's all of it.
Mm.
Oh, so why do you think women are, you know, because we're super duper at telling everyone what they should be doing, but we really, really do struggle to prioritize ourselves.
We've been encouraged to put everyone else above ourselves, but also not only that, but we've been rewarded for putting ourselves at the bottom. We've been praised for, what a selfless woman. She always puts everyone else above herself. It's like the double whammy of being encouraged and rewarded for it. So it feels very, very uncomfortable to do that. It feels like we are genuinely being a bad mother because good mothers put everyone else first. When actually a good mother looks after herself, because if she's well and she's happy, then her children will be well and happy. So yeah, I think we've been shaped.
And what would you say the cost long term to women is of that?
It's huge. I mean, some women, the risk of suicide at this point of life really, really spikes. So, I mean, it can cost some women's lives. But also ill health, these not looking after yourself, not giving yourself permission, not feeling the permission to look after yourself and get the support that you need and ask for help and eat well and, do things a bit differently from other people if that's what really is in your best interest, maybe not drinking so much as your friends or whatever it might be, resting. That's radical, the idea of women resting is completely bonkers. But not doing those things has a direct impact on our health and well-being. It really does. And you see the risks of health conditions increasing post-menopause, as well as, our mental health being affected. Hopefully, I hope that not giving a fuck anymore helps us to reclaim a bit of that, actually. And I think women are beginning to find a voice, and women are beginning to talk about this more and encouraging each other to do what they need to do. But yeah, it comes at a great, sometimes the greatest cost of it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I see it with so many of my friends now who are, say like they go to their doctor and they'll describe their symptoms. And I'm like, come on, please tell me your doctor is going to say, you're this age, this is probably what it is. But instead it's like, have you tried going for a walk? Have you tried getting a bit more exercise and yes, diet and exercise are wonderful. Like they are two of the big puzzle pieces of life. But if somebody lands into the doctor, they already are doing these things. Like there's probably not a single listener out there that isn't aware of that full like roller coaster. Calling it a roller coaster, I think it kind of almost does us a disservice because it implies that we're having a great time.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You know, roller
Yeah.
coaster of female hormones that we experience every single month.
Mm.
And far from a fun fair ride it is, but that is moving from, really, really young age. And like with girls nowadays getting periods, at, 8 and 9, probably, beginning to start, maybe 6 and 7, that kind of cyclical hormonal change. Like and then that goes right the way through to
Yeah.
and 45 is like it would be a fairly early menopause, I suppose. So like
Yes, it's officially early menopause. Yeah, anything below 45 is an early menopause.
yeah. What would you say, like when you consider that lifespan of hormonal upheaval in a woman's life, what would you say are the key stages where they most need support but do not get it?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think girls are getting more, and there's more understanding for girls. There's more slack given for girls during adolescence. I think women could have a whole load more support during labor. I mean, women who aren't white, the risks to Black and minority women during labor is horrifying. Women really need more support during labor, and to be not decentered during that process, because the entire focus is on the baby and not on the mother. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but it really feels like as a woman going through labor, like at all costs you must save. Anyway,
Oh,
I think,
you're preaching to the choir here, being
yeah.
don't get
So
me going.
labor's become, it's either really super, super hands-off medicalized, or it's super medicalized. And we need to have a real balance and a real understanding of what really makes a woman feel safe and able to labor well. And to be listened to and centered, especially for women who aren't white. I think post-labor also, that fourth trimester, I think women really need some support. And then again, when like I promise I'm not what is it? I don't want to swear, but what am I trying to
That's
say?
okay. It's all right.
I'm not trying to lick your ass here, but I do feel that mothers really need support, like the whole trying to be working mothers raising children, it's just insane. It's absolutely insane. And then also, yeah, absolutely. If we could have more understanding and support in perimenopause, I think it would be amazing. But then at the same time, if women just full stop, if their physiology and their cyclical nature and our nature, our intuitive, emotional, cyclical nature, our wisdom, we are kind of witchy. If that was better understood and respected, we wouldn't need those specific points of support. We would be respected and honored throughout our reproductive lives.
But when you consider that every single human being on earth came from a woman, you would think that, there wouldn't be a pedestal high enough on which to place women.
Yeah.
And yet, there's something seriously wrong there. Like going back to what you were saying there about, that fourth trimester, the hormonal fallout from birthing the placenta, that drop in progesterone is the hormonal equivalent of being hit by a bus.
Yeah.
Like we say things like that. And people know those words, but they really, really don't get it. And I think even as you're going through it, you really don't get it.
Mm.
How massive that is, how massive birth is, regardless of whether it's a vaginal birth, cesarean birth, instrumental, if you did it standing on your head, down at the bottom of the ocean, it doesn't matter. It's monumental. And then you've got all of the, changes in brain chemistry and brain structure and everything like that. Like, I honestly don't think there's a pedestal high enough for women.
Mm.
And again, regardless of whether or not they're mothers or not, we're all,
Yeah. 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 You're completely right. I mean, we're able to grow another whole human being. It's absolutely mad. It
yeah.
really is. And I try to be positive in this, and I try to think, the degree to which we've been suppressed and pushed and oppressed and attacked, and the amount of violence that women experience and all of those things. It's because we are so powerful. It's because, you flip it on its head. We're treated that way because on some level, men sense the power that we have and the enormity of what we are capable of, and they can't handle it. I'm not anti-men at all. Like, I really have a lot of
I
compassion.
love men.
They don't thrive in the patriarchy either. I really don't feel that they do. They don't get enough support in this. The system. It's the system. So I hope that's what gives me hope in this, because otherwise it's all a bit bleak.
And I actually think the more women that come, and I'm going to call it come of age, because
Mm.
that's what it is. It is a coming of age, just like getting your period, just like becoming a mother. It is a coming of age, entering perimenopause and then menopause. And I think that as the current generations enter into that, we're just done. We're
Yeah.
done with that nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be some massive kind of, structural upheaval in society into a matriarchy, although that would be wonderful for everyone, but I really do. I am hopeful, like yourself. I'm hopeful that
Yeah.
the tide is turning on that acceptance of not women's worth not being recognized by the world and themselves.
Yeah. You know what? It's just occurred to me, literally just occurred to me as we're talking, that we are the generation, and there's quite a broad generation here
Yeah.
of the women who were better educated
Yeah.
and were expected to have their own careers. And we're coming through now and we're going, hang on, we've had this training, we've had this, we're pretty clever, we're really clever, we've been well educated, and this is not adding up. Like, and I think it's down to us to, that's why so many of us are questioning what's going on, because it's just not adding up at all.
Yeah. As my kids would say, the math ain't mathin'.
Yeah, the math ain't mathing. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's funny you mentioned that about like, we are so much better educated, and it's now, because it's now that we're calling out that women aren't represented in medical trials. Women are like, even the idea of saying the word period. When I was growing up, that is not a word I would have mentioned. It would have, be at a time in a month, or, and it wasn't something that was talked about. Whereas now women and girls, and like my background is in secondary school teaching, so I would still have dealings with teenage girls and they just talk about periods and not a bother to them and in front of boys and everything. And they're like, look, this is
That's
it.
great. Yeah.
Most of my life I'm going to have a period. So,
Mm.
suck it up, everybody, this is it. And it's wonderful
Yeah.
to see them developing that kind of strength of character.
Oh, that's really great. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah. Being so for me, perimenopause is, I think it's fair to say, running the shit show at the moment.
Yep.
And it has
Okay.
really, really triggered some really, and like full blown, I would say, brain changes for me. And what might have been ADHD traits in my life up until now, where I was very much, and again, girls with ADHD presenting so differently to boys. I was just a real high achiever, super focused on the things I was super focused on. And yet now this has snowballed into what the equivalent, I suppose, in computer terms would be. There's about 10 million browser windows open. There's a YouTube clip playing somewhere in full volume on about half of them.
Mm.
And it's literally like it's a constant like a go, 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 go voice in my head. And if I don't keep like literally pen and paper right at my side all the time, thoughts will come in and go before I can even write them down.
Mhm.
So like and I'm like I still consider myself to be a young woman. Like I say, I'm 42. I still think that is really, really young. And I know for other women my age, most of us are not ready to just shrivel up and die. But the changes in libido, in comfort with your body, confidence in your body, and even relationship changes in this time. Like, what is happening to women that their libido is maybe starting to dwindle down a little bit, that they are starting to maybe feel a little more conscious of themselves? And is this something that we can provide guidance to women on how to navigate without shame and silence? Now, my ADHD brain is already saying to me, if you've put about 6 different questions into that one question. So I will go back there and say, what's going on? Why is libido taking the hit?
So a number of things, and I love this question. I could talk all day about this topic. So, I mean, estrogen, our desire is partly driven by estrogen. Testosterone has some role in it too, but estrogen is dropping, or maybe we're not able to make estrogen so much. I think actually, there's so much to it. We are more stressed. Our capacity is reduced, as I was saying earlier. If you were saying you've got ADHD, if you're someone who's got neurodiversity, that capacity, you're highly sensitive, or you've had trauma of some kind, your nervous system is uh, able to carry less. But yet we're still carrying the same amount. Stress is such a dampener on the libido. It switches it off. So there's, the hormonal changes, the stress, the nervous system. I actually also think that a lot of women aren't having good sex. And in perimenopause, you just can't like push through that. Your body's like, sorry, but I'm not going to pretend anymore that this isn't working for me. And it's not necessarily anyone's fault. The way that many people have sex, and this is not everyone by any means, but the way that many people have sex is centering the male experience. And it's been shaped by TV, by films, by porn, by all sorts of, cultural thing. It's not any one thing. And so, you can't hide from that anymore. There are physiological changes happening in the vagina, which, if you're not really aroused and being and having your pleasure also centered, then it's going to show up and you're not going to feel like you want to engage in that. Life is more strained perhaps in perimenopause if you're not being supported. And, so many women struggle to communicate. We live our lives. We're so good at sensing other people's emotions and sensing body languages that women amongst each other kind of get along pretty well because we're all tuned into each other, but men don't do that. And we rely on men almost to pick that up, but they don't so well. So we're kind of relying slightly on telepathy in our relationships if you're in a heterosexual relationship. And it doesn't work, it really doesn't work. We've got to communicate more. But perimenopause is something that's quite really hard to put into words and explain to our partners. So it's really hard for them to understand where they're coming from and how they can help us. There's so much work to do. And so, there's so much to it, but I think it's particularly the fact that so many women are not enjoying sex and have not been enjoying sex enough.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I would say that like you were just saying there about communication. I think communicating about what you want again, you know, in your sexual relationship is really important, but it's maybe something that again, particularly as women, we have been told to quieten down on. That is again, the good girl stuff that's not ladylike. It's a bit like wine and chocolate. I'm at that stage in my life now where I'm not going to eat crap. I was going to say crap wine, crap chocolate, or drink crap wine. So
Yes.
why would a woman settle for crap sex?
Yeah.
You know,
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, completely. And then you were also talking about her relationship with her body, her relationship, her sort of spiritual relationship with herself is changing, her identity is changing, her body's physically changing. And we've been led all our lives to society has told us that it's only really women who are young and youthful who are valued in society. There are obvious changes that are showing us that we're not. Maybe there are skin changes, hair changes that make us feel like we're losing our value, and that's huge as well. Maybe a lot of women put a bit more weight on in perimenopause. We've been, that's at odds with the idea that we should be thin. The truth is that men like us when we've got more. Men like curves. They like the wobble. They like they like what's different from their bodies. Their bodies aren't shapely and curvy and wobbly, and they love that so much. But we're not used to that. We've been brought up. If we're in our 40s now, we were growing up in the 90s during heroin chic. That's where the blueprint of what we feel our bodies should look like came from. So it's really challenging on so many fronts. It really is.
yeah,
But it's about, the sooner that we can start communicating and learning how to communicate in a way that's collaborative and not critical. Women are very good at criticizing their men. But if we can find a way to communicate in a way that's collaborative, and that brings them on side, I think, it'll really start to help shift that. And there's an amazing book called Mind the Gap that really helps to explain it from, the sexual side of things
yeah,
and what really good sex is and how to have a good sex life. Because no one's been taught how to do this. We've all been fumbling around making it up. But
yeah, brilliant. That's going into my Audible library now.
Yep, absolutely. It's really good.
Jane, your kids are a good bit older than mine, and I loved how you described your season of motherhood as moving from being maybe the CEO of the house to becoming more of an advisor as, your children kind of move up the ranks. It's a really fascinating shift, and it's a great analogy, actually.
Mm.
What have you learned about letting go, especially around things that are like really, important core values for you, like food, health, independence, and allowing your children to make their own choices and mistakes?
Oh, it's not easy. It's really not easy. I'd like to point out that that analogy is not my own. It's not my analogy for the CEO and the advisory. It's a really good one, isn't it? I love it.
Yes, yeah.
I found it really hard around nutrition. My daughter is 7, she's going to be 18 at the end of July, and she has been an incredibly fussy eater. And when I was training in nutrition, I put too much pressure on her, and my husband we both put too much pressure on her, especially because, she had her own health issues, and it was important for her health, given what she was gone through, that she would eat lots of vegetables. And it took someone else outside of the family to have a meal with us to say, hey guys, if you continue like this, she's gonna develop an eating disorder. You guys got to stop. And I had to immediately learn to take my nutrition hat off, and just um, allow her to to eat in the way that she needed to eat. And it turns out that she's autistic and she's probably got ARFID, which is avoidant restrictive food
Mhm.
intake disorder. So her diet is very limited. And it's a really hard balance because I think what's helped me now is seeing how so different. I've got two children. They're so different. They are so chalk and cheese, and that's entirely themselves. I haven't really had any part in that, and I've just got to allow them the freedom and the autonomy, which I didn't have myself. I think what the strength I've drawn from for this is feeling that I didn't have a voice, I didn't have choice when I was growing up, and I really want them to have it. But it's a really hard line to find. Our role is still advisory. We still have to help them develop the skills to go out and be independent in the world. And I make so many mistakes. My daughter, I've been too lax with my daughter. I haven't been pushing her enough. Her autistic diagnosis just come through. It's really, really hard. But I think they have to learn their own mistakes. They get their strength from it. They don't learn how to make decisions if we're making them for them. They don't learn if we're not allowing them the opportunity to do that for themselves.
Totally agree. And like my mom once told me that the greatest gift you can give to your children is their independence, because that
Yeah,
is your role as a parent at the end of the day. It's not to, shape them or anything like that. It is to prepare them for a world without you.
yeah,
Unfortunately, that's
yeah,
what it is.
yeah, yeah. We've got to give them the space and the support to kind of to bloom and not to be shaped when we can't shape them. They've got to have the space to open up and to blossom. Yeah, it's hard though, isn't it? It's really hard.
Look, it really, really is. And then like I even when I'm listening to you there and you're saying, like, oh, I was too hard, and I'm like, but you did what you thought was best at the time.
Yeah,
When we know better, we do better. But as parents, I think as long as our actions come from a place of love and we acknowledge it when we get it wrong,
mm,
then that sets the best example to
yeah.
children, because they know we're not perfect. They don't want perfect. And they certain well, maybe they do need perfect, but they don't want it and they're not going to get it either. Look, I'm even here sitting here, spouting all this, and then I will be racked with guilt over, something, random, like, oh, the kids didn't get any vegetables today, or, he didn't eat his dinner and he didn't have enough food in his lunchbox. And yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we
yeah.
can only do our best.
We can only do our best. Yeah. I've tried to focus on them enjoying meat food ultimately and enjoying meal times as the focus rather than nitpicking about what they're eating.
Yeah,
And I think also what helps is you doing your own personal growth and being open to our children being our teachers and learning from them and allowing them to teach us so that we're not reactive. We're coming from a place that's more responsive than reactive and operating from our own wounds.
no, absolutely. And cutting the generational trauma that we're not passing. Look, I don't doubt for a moment that I haven't traumatized my children in some way already. Like actually remember my mom coming into me first day in the hospital. My mom's a midwife, so she was like,
Wow.
she came prancing in. She didn't have a visitor's badge or anything like that. And she came in, and I was sitting there bawling my eyes out. And again, like that, hormonal was hitting you. And I was bawling my eyes out. And I was like, Mommy, please tell me it gets easier. Please. And she said, Aoife, it does get easier. And I was like, I just don't want to do it wrong. I just don't want to get it wrong. And she went, I'll stop you there now. We all fuck our kids up in our own special way. And it won't be in the ways you think it will. And it won't be in these early days. And I was like, do you know what? Like, it's so true. All we have to do is love them. Like I said, as long as our behaviors come from a place of love,
Yeah,
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 that is enough.
yeah, absolutely. And it would be weird for them not to have any adversity and to not have anything to kind of strengthen them and to learn from and to overcome.
Yeah, totally, totally. I know on Instagram that, we definitely curate our own feeds on, in Instagram and other social media platforms and that.
Mm.
But On mine, there really is like a massive presence of women, and I'm going to say of a certain age, rediscovering their intensity, their emotional depth. And I know we touched on this at the beginning, and even in terms of things like, kind of like that, really getting into the idea of the cyclical nature of being a woman, and it being seasonal and things like that. And, looking at it as, this isn't something to apologize for. In fact, this is actually my superpower. And I don't know if you've ever read the book Eve by Kat Bohannon.
I think it might be on my bedside table waiting to be read somewhere.
It's a really long book, but it is amazing. And it's basically all about how women are what drives evolution because we birth. And
Yes, I've got it waiting to be read. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's brilliant. It really, really is brilliant. And she actually makes a point in the book about how, if, like other mammals, that they are fertile and then they die, we're not. We're fertile and then we have a period of non-fertileness.
Mhm.
And she's saying, well, there has to be a reason for that. There has to be a reason. There has to be a really important reason why these elders hang about. And let's face it, we hang about a bit longer than the men as well. There's lots of reasons for that. But it's almost like I kind of feel like I've just entered my witch era. And I'm like, again, I don't know if that's even the right word, but if women could reclaim in perimenopause, could reclaim one thing about themselves, what would you hope it would be?
God, there are so many things. There are so many things. I'd like them to reclaim their power and their authority and their sort of dark feminine, but above all, probably their voice. Because with your voice, you can make things happen. It's you manifest through your voice and through communication, and then you can get your needs met and your opinions expressed and your authority expressed through your voice. And it's been so repressed, and we have so much to say. We have so much wisdom to share.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This has just been the most wonderful conversation. I've really, really, really loved this, 45 minutes chatting away with you. There is something and it's a power, and it's something just so powerful about reframing all of those changes that women experience. And that it's not that there's something wrong with us, but it's just part of the natural rhythm of a woman's body and a woman's life. This really it has been absolutely fantastic having you on, Bean. I could sit here and talk to you all day, and we could rant about the patriarchy and the absolute nonsense that goes on in obstetrics, but we'll have to leave that for another day.
That would be lovely. Thank you so much for having me. I've really, really enjoyed chatting with you.
No, it has. It's been fabulous for me too. So just to my listeners, if you are listening and you recognize yourself, which you likely do, in some of what we talked about today, that overwhelm, the emotional shifts, the questioning of expectations that you've been just like essentially carrying around like a big, huge lump for years, know that you really, really are not alone. And that while the transitions of life can be challenging, they can bring massive clarity. Bean, would you mind telling our listeners where they can find you and follow you and get in contact with you?
Thank you. Yeah. So I mainly hang out on Instagram, and my business is called The Nutritional Bean. So on Instagram, it's The Nutritional Bean, and my website is The Nutritional Bean. And always welcome to jump into my DMs and send me a message.
That's fantastic. So if you've enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much if you'd share it with your other mommy friends or left a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really genuinely does help more people find these conversations that are so important for women to be having. And as always, if this episode has picked a scab off an old wound or a new one, be gentle with yourself. Take some time to sit with those feelings and reach out and chat to someone if you need further support. I'll pop some support links in the podcast notes. And yeah, until next time, thank you all so much for being here. And as always, mamas, stay feral.